Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Nelson with the Kiltz Health live stream. And today, our guest is Kelsey Buchalter. That was not exactly what I was thinking, but Buchalter, can you pronounce it?
You're doing good. You're doing good. It's
Okay, okay.
Buchalter.
All righty. So before I start, a couple of things. Thank you for being here. Number one, oh, I'm having power problems. I don't know if you see it.
You see a flashing light like a party.
Yeah, hold on a second. All right. So that light is turned off. Apparently, it was just that light, not. Anyways, thank you for being here. Put in the chat where you're watching from. I'm in Central Florida. Kelsey, where are you?
I'm in Cape Town, South Africa, so it's way past my bedtime, which is why I'm
Uh,
wearing my blue blockers.
what time is it over there right now?
It's just after 10 o'clock at night.
Okay. Well, thank you for being with us.
It's an honor.
Certainly. And we'll have a little conversation here, and hopefully you can then go to sleep. And that period between 10 and 2 a.m. it's very important, right? We can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So a couple of housekeeping things. Today at 5:30 in the Kiltz Mighty Tribe community, we're gonna have a Zoom call meeting, and later at 7 p.m., we're going to have another Zoom call within the Kiltz Mighty Tribe with the group that is doing the Lion Diet for the month of November. Okay. And so Kelsey is a Nutrition Network practitioner and advisor, host of the Human Theater podcast, TEDx speaker, Sankofa peer recovery coach, metabolic and lifestyle health coach, and singer, songwriter, and actor. Um, that's quite a lot of things, right? Uh, so we're gonna be talking about your carnivore journey and the things that you do throughout the hour. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And if you put QQQ, it's easier for me to pick them up. Um, let's see. All right. So I had the fortune of meeting you at Hack Your Health in Tampa. So how did you like Florida? By the way, I live in Florida.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. I cannot wait to be back. Hopefully, I'll be back very, very soon. I was just blown away that it was so hot. And it was meant to be a quote unquote winter. Like I thought, an African girl, like I'll be fine. I was humbled a little bit by the heat there.
It's each hot region is a little bit of a different kind of heat, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
No, but it was also so beautiful. And yeah, it kind of felt like a little very similar to Cape Town in its own way. So I kind of felt like I was somewhat home away from home. But yeah, no, it was beautiful. I loved it.
all right. So, did you visit any other place besides going to the convention?
No, we were just there for the conference, but we did spend yeah, about a week there. So, by foot, we did as much as we could. We didn't venture out too far.
All righty. So I do have a little bit more information you had provided. I'm going to read this. After navigating her way through a lifelong struggle of severe anorexia, bulimia, and anxiety, she has become passionately outspoken about diet and lifestyle interventions in the treatment and prevention of chronic disease. Her biggest inspiration is the body's innate ability to heal itself when put in the right environment to do so. And in this regard, she is on a mission to empower individuals to know that they are not broken and help them become their own health advocates. How important do you think that is? Once we
I
get the knowledge that that's the most important thing, perhaps, when we're dealing with if we have any chronic diseases.
mm, I think it's foundational. Of course, knowledge is power, but knowledge is only really powerful if you can implement it. There's a saying like, if knowledge were everything, then librarians would be the wealthiest people on the planet, and that's not necessarily the case. So knowledge is one thing, but actually putting it into practice is another thing, and that's kind of a beautiful spiritual journey in and of itself, to take that knowledge and implement it into your life.
All right. So, why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself and your experiences and your healing story from the anorexia, bulimia, eating disorder to now?
Yeah. Again, thank you so much for having me on. It's an absolute honor, and it was even more so an honor to meet you in person. So I'm 29. I live in Cape Town, South Africa. And as you've already said, I'm a nutrition network practitioner, peer recovery coach, singer-songwriter, actor, TEDx speaker, and host of the Human Theater podcast. But ultimately, I'm just a human. And I kind of have to pinch myself, because a few years ago, and when I look back at, when I was a child, there is no ways on earth that I could ever imagine myself, speaking to someone on the opposite side of the world and being somewhat grounded in my own feet, essentially, and having the confidence enough to even speak what I'm thinking. So backtrack to when I was a young girl, I just only ever knew myself as being a really, really anxious kid, to the point where my parents were advised to delay my start of nursery school by 6 months, because I just had so much anxiety. I was the shyest little girl. So shy that I would be sitting in class and I would need to go use the bathroom, but I would be too scared to ask the teacher if I could go, and too scared to ask the teacher to open the window if it was too hot. I would have to ask a friend to ask the teacher to either open the window or put the aircon on or whatever it was. I was a very, very shy and insecure kid. And I started ballet when I was 3. And being given that I was such an anxious and insecure girl, I was very sensitive and probably hypersensitive and hyper attuned to how others were perceiving me and how other people, just very sensitive to what they were reacting to, I suppose, me in the world, how they were reacting to me. So I kind of, starting ballet at 3, I was also very body aware. Comparing yourself as a girl is quite common, but even more so when you've got anxiety and you're already insecure in your body, and perfect breeding grounds for an eating disorder to slowly make its way quite deeply in my neurology. But yeah, as a kid, as I've already mentioned, I was just a highly anxious person. I also, primary school was quite hard for me. I went to a very, very small primary school, and there were 9 girls, including myself, and girls can be mean. And I was bullied in school, and it was really hard in primary school. And I have 2 brothers, so I was always naturally kind of like a sporty kid as well, up and above. Everyone knew me for my music, so up and above the music, I also had an amazing outlet with sports, and I just naturally got on a lot better with the guys. So I'm grateful for that, to kind of have gotten me through primary school, specifically music. It was very much my emotional outlet. But anyway, what I'm trying to paint the picture here is that I had a really, it was very difficult, not only in my head with the anxiety and my body insecurities, but also externally as well, especially through primary school. Things definitely changed for the better when I went into middle school and high school, because there were a lot more kids around me and I made new friends, and it was just really, really awesome. All the while slowly, having ups and downs with my own mental health. But things really hit the fan after I left school, and it became apparent to me that a whole world awaited for me. And I sort of crumbled very hard with the anorexia, to the point where it was like a medical crisis for quite a long time, and I was in and out of hospitals. It was kind of contained during school because there was like a set structure in place, just with school and extramurals, etc. And as I said, it really escalated once I left school, and there was not necessarily that like structure in place. But I started psychotherapy as young as, I think, 7 or 8. And I was just first diagnosed with, like, as most people are, generalized anxiety disorder. And then, yeah, I don't know how much more detail you want me to go into, but it was, in fact, I was actually put on antidepressants for the first time when I was 15. And it was around that time where I began to binge and eventually found out how to purge. So that was just a very interesting connection I've made, because I have been on antidepressants, and I I can get on a soapbox about them, but I'm not going to do so. I'm going to keep it quite PG, but they were not very helpful for me. In fact, I actually landed up gaining about 15 kilograms at one point in a very, very short period of time, which, for anyone, regardless if they have an eating disorder or not, is quite a drastic amount of weight to gain in a very, very short period of time. And it was very unsettling. And yeah, I decided then and there to wean myself off of medications, which you need to have a doctor to do that with. You can't just do it yourself, even though I kind of did. I do not recommend that. I was bedridden for nearly 2 weeks. I had to take anti-nausea medication that they give chemotherapy patients, because I was so nauseous and just unable to move and keep my eyes open. So that was a very awful experience. But yeah, that's a tangent. Yeah, in the midst of another relapse in 2018, I actually went to a nutritionist slash health coach, and I had like a 3-hour session with her. We didn't even speak about food. And right at the end of the session, she said, "Okay, Kelsey, for the next 10 days, you're just going to be eating red meat and eggs and water." And that's what I did in 2018. And I've never been able to look back ever since.
Very good. Now, so I do have some pictures here you shared with me. And so, how old were you here?
I was 20, I want to say 23, I think. That was, I can't do math right now at this time of the night.
All
I think
right.
in my 20s. I mean, yeah, in my
So
20s.
this was before that 2018.
Yes. Yeah,
Uh,
that was actually, that was February 2018. Yeah, that was
okay.
February 20. That was my last hospital admission.
So you're gonna have a you're gonna be 7 years carnivore
Yeah,
this
I
year.
am. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Okay.
no. So 8 technically, because we're in 2026.
Correct. Sorry, 8. So
Yeah, this was
and these are
2018.
some more recent after
Yes,
pictures.
that's 2022 when I graduated. I studied musical theater. That's just me in one of my character outfits, which is a pretty outfit.
All right. So sometimes in our mind we create a story from what we think other people are thinking about you. And you mentioned that you were very concerned about what others thought about you. The reality is, most people don't have that kind of an impact on everybody else around it. They're not constantly thinking about you, although you, uh, and it happens to all of us to a certain degree, that we're thinking, oh, what are they thinking about me? If I do this, and what if I do that?
Hmm.
Once you went carnivore, though, this happens to all of us as well. What what were the comments of people around you, friends, family, extended people in your life about the way you were eating?
Whew. This is a rough road. This is a rough. It's a really good question though, because it's very. I think it's golden things for people who are on this journey to be hearing the real life experience of it all. Because I was met with a lot of this is they were. I mean, my parents, everyone near to me was like, "This is just another eating disorder." They're like, "What are you doing? This is an eating disorder. You can't do this." I even met with Professor Tim Noakes for tea to ask him, like, "Are you sure that this is okay? That I can do this in my state?" And he's like, "Yes, this is the best diet for you to be doing." Um, but yeah, I was met with a lot of uh, criticism. Um, but I was very impressed. I was very impressionable and I was very vulnerable to other people's comments. So it was really rough in the beginning. Um, I was so excited to share because I had an endocrinologist at the time who had kind of seen me through all of this, and I was really excited to go and tell her and inform her about the carnivore diet and what I was doing because I was feeling so much better. And the proof was kind of in the pudding as well. So I went to my appointment with her, and I was so excited, and I told her exactly what I'm eating and this is how I'm feeling. And she just said to me, "Oh, Kelsey, this is like what we would feed the kids in the Red Cross Children's Hospital to fatten them up." Now, of course, she didn't mean anything malicious when she said that, but to the eating disorder brain, that was a huge knock to a sensitive soul. And that triggered on quite a lot of anxiety. I wouldn't call it a relapse per se. I was still carnivore, but I very much restricted my food for quite a while. And this was just before lockdown. And in fact, lockdown was kind of a blessing in disguise for me because that's when I found podcasts and that's when I got to meet and, well, not meet. It's when I got to hear and educate myself actually for the first time why I felt so good with carnivore. And I was listening to all the doctors, all the Sean Bakers, the Amber Hearns, the Judy Chos, Paul Saladino before he even went animal based, and just, I mean, eventually the Dr.Kiltzes of the world. So I mean, going back to your initial comments about knowledge is power, that was a powerful moment in my journey because I eventually reached a point where, having listened to conversations of researchers and medical doctors who are all genuinely there to try and help people and to try and make them healthy, it kind of, because healthy is a very triggering word for an eating disorder, specifically anorexia, because healthy means getting fat in a very limbic sort of reptilian brain nervous system on like that type of a level. But I kind of, by listening to all of these podcasts and just like literally soaking them up and educating myself and empowering myself with this knowledge, I reached a point where healthy became something that I was no longer a trigger and something that I aspired towards. And that is when I had like that moment of like, okay, I'm going to go to the shop now and I'm going to buy all the fatty red meat that already in the beginning I could feel was what my body loved and needed. So that was kind of like a beautiful turning point in my journey. And it was from there when I started to find these podcasts. I mean, it's probably subconsciously and consciously one of the biggest reasons why I started my own is to help spread the word, because they were so helpful for me. And then after I graduated studying musical theater, I went into all of Nutrition Network's training to eventually become a certified practitioner with them.
I found Network a couple of years ago, and it's been very helpful. I've taken a bunch of their courses. I I've been a doctor for 41 years, and for the past 3 years, I've been taking a lot of the Nutrition Network courses. It's an excellent source, if not a little bit pricey sometimes, but
It's
all
worth it.
very good and excellent courses. So you mentioned a couple of things. One, the nutritionist, I guess, that saw you made the comment. Now, very often when people with eating disorders or in the hospital, when they want to fatten them up, they actually give them a lot of sugar, carbohydrates, a lot of canola oil, all these seed oils, because they will probably put on weight. Uh, Not necessarily is the healthiest thing. And with the carnivore diet, people who have excess weight find that they can lose, and people who need to gain weight, they can gain. So it is not a weight losing diet. I believe it's a health optimization uh,
Oh yeah.
diet. So wherever you are, you can go back to more the center. Now, some people think is, for example, a weight loss diet, and you start it and you have great benefits sometimes that have nothing to do with the weight, but you might get upset that you're either not gaining uh, or losing enough weight for what your goal may have been, maybe unrealistic sometimes. But you also mentioned the weight restrictive. Now, what is the difference between restricting diet and therapeutic diet in your mind? And in this case, restricting carbohydrate or using it therapeutically.
Hmm. It's such a great question. And I will just share first from an anecdotal experience that the minute, because I was kind of keto before I was carnivore, but I was fearing fat and I was just very, very lean protein and just like some of the green starch veg. But the minute that nutritionist informed me, told me, Kelsey, you're going to be eating red meat and eggs, I felt so liberated. It has been the opposite of restriction for me. I can't, I mean, fully explain it, but just psychologically, even, it has been the most liberating thing that I've ever experienced regarding food. I mean, that's why I say it literally saved my life because it was the first intervention that got me to want to eat food again. Like from the get go, before I even had my first meal, my first meal was boiled eggs, and it like my brain just switched on. But yeah, I don't find it restrictive at all. That's just my N of one. I know other people can think that it's restrictive, but I actually think that, I mean, there was a time when I would just be awake during the day, crying hysterically, hair falling out, but no tears were coming out of my eyes because I just didn't have the fluids in my body to be able to do that. I would go to bed every night praying that I wouldn't wake up because of how like tormenting it was inside of my head when I was awake during the day. And I wasn't able to string sentences together. I wasn't able to concentrate. I wasn't able to speak. I was literally just, as I said, like crying in hysteria every day in a point in my life when I was really, really bad. And I found that life to be restrictive as opposed to now where I often just go on tangents like all the time. Like my head is so full of things that I want to say. I have to reel myself in. Like I do not find this restrictive. But yeah, I think once someone once you understand the science of therapeutic carbohydrate restriction and really it is as simple as, you know, a species appropriate diet. That's all I'm gonna like that's how I word it because as you said, like it's a health optimization diet. I mean, if you take your pet to a vet, one of the first questions the vet asks you is, "What has your pet been eating?" You know, like a food is like one of the lowest hanging fruit that you can, you know, a lever to pull for health optimization. So, um, going back to your question, I don't find it restrictive because I mean, the majority of the processed foods out there are not actually, I don't actually view them as food because they're so processed. I view real whole foods as food. And when you zoom out and look at it through an ancestral lens, you know, depending on where your location is and where your, what season it is, like, you know, eating the foods that would naturally be there in that season and in that location is kind of like just a simple rule of like what we should be eating. And most of the time, there is always going to be animal food.
So a species specific appropriate diet,
Mm.
and we might think that, well, anything that we can put in our mouth is okay because we could eat it. I can grab one of those things in the supermarket that it's labeled as food. It comes in a box, a bag, or a can, and it's manufactured, ultra processed, extremely not food. And I might think I'm eating a specific diet, uh, but it is not. Now, you said initially you were high protein, still avoiding a fat, and then at some point you switch. When you went to a higher fat carnivore diet, the you what difference did it make?
Oh, so much. I came to life again. I literally came to life. My brain, I could just feel literally. I had energy. My hair started to grow back. Um, Words came into my brain. I was happy. I was smiling. I was laughing. So yeah, I mean, fat is essential. Fat is really, really essential, and we're all bio individual. I'm not telling everyone when I say that fat is essential. I'm not also saying that um, go eat a whole stick of butter. Although for some people that works, and sometimes I also do that. So it's so bio individual, and this is something that I've been watching this space grow and bloom for, I mean, since 2018 essentially, and it has been such a beautiful thing to watch. But I fear that, you know, and it's not only just the nutrition space, although I'm going to stick with the nutrition space. There's just so much information out there, and there's so much misinformation out there, and it's overwhelming and overstimulating. And, you know, it's so easy to get stuck in the weeds. And it's, there's so many influencers and gurus out there, but the most important guru is yourself, because no doctor, no matter how educated you are, could ever know you and your body and what your body's actually saying. And I'm going to draw this. I know I've gone off on a tangent, but
It's
you
your
know,
time.
what I've come to learn about specifically eating disorder recovery, specifically anorexia, which has the highest mortality rate of any psychiatric disorder, is that the body is so smart. It knows what it wants and what it needs. And true recovery is when we're actually able to honor and listen to that. So, true recovery is when we stop listening to the head and we listen to the heart. And that, for a lot of people, is actually the longest journey from your head to your heart. Because where I'm going with this is that, Guru X will say, eat more fat. Guru Y will say, don't eat fat. Like, both of them have truths in specific contexts, but none of them are you. And no one knows, the only person that will know exactly what you need is your body. And all we have to do is just listen to that. Now, it's often hard to do that, but it is a journey. And I will give it a succinct example here is that for a long time, I was just lean protein, and I knew that my body was craving fat. Like, that was all I was craving all day long was fatty meat. I still crave it. I mean, I'm clearly someone who my body just needs a lot of fat, because if I go for too long with just too lean protein, I'm a mental health disaster. Like, I'm just, so much anxiety comes back, and that's just a end of one, anecdote right now for where I'm at in my life and my age, etc. I just need a lot of fat, and yeah. So that being said, in the beginning, when I was first listening to podcasts, as I've already mentioned, I'm quite an impressionable person. I was more so then, but not necessarily now, because I've also worked with so many people as well in practice, which has also really gotten me a lot more confident in what I'm trying to say. But in the beginning, I was listening to people saying, you need to do OMAD and, like, cut this and do that. And I was doing everything that I was listening on these podcasts, but none of the things, I mean, they were mostly speaking about the Gen Pop and a population that did not even apply to me. Most of the time, especially in that time, a lot of people were mainly speaking about insulin resistant type 2 diabetics. That is not me as a severely underweight anorexic person. So I was, like, in the beginning, finding myself trying to just scrummage and do whatever the guru is telling me to do, not necessarily internalizing the fact that we are all bio-individual and context matters. So all of this to say, I can't remember my through line, but watching the space grow, I've just become, and also working with so many more people in clinical practice, I am so outspoken about listening to your body, because it knows, it is so smart. And in the context of a real whole food diet, you can't really go wrong. If your body has not been exposed to, and if your sensory palates and, satiety signals have not been completely skewed by so much junk food and processed food and vegetable and seed oils, in the context of eating a real whole food diet, and in specifically this case a carnivore diet, if your body is telling you need fat, that is not something to ignore. Your body's, I think a lot of people still, I genuinely think that females, especially younger females, are actually grossly under eating, even on a carnivore diet. I see it a lot. And I see it, and I also have experienced it myself, because I know how different I feel when I've actually eaten to my true hunger, which is really, really high. But it's similar to the whole mindset shift that you have to make from, realizing that cholesterol is not bad for you. Dietary cholesterol is not bad for you, butter is not bad for you, in the context of a whole food diet. It's the same thing with portion sizes and even just adding fat. So yeah, I can't even remember your initial question, but hopefully I answered it somewhere.
Yes. So food noise.
Mm,
Some people have stronger food noise when they're trying to
yeah.
change their diet, and they keep
Yes.
sliding back to what they ate before. Was that a problem for you at any point?
Not necessarily in the first few years. I think I was so malnourished, and I mean, even to this day, I only crave like fatty meat. Like if I'm really hungry, I can't think of eating anything else than actually something satiating, which for me is just protein and fat. But that being said, I often would walk around for the first few years, like almost yearning to be able to like eat the foods that I'm walking past in the grocery store, or the the baked goods or whatever everyone else is eating around me. But after genuinely feeling what it feels like to be on a carnivore diet, and that is my my personal bias, it's where I feel best. I over time, and what I want to say to everyone who may be struggling with this is that, firstly, I want to validate it. Secondly, I want to remind everyone that it's most of the cravings that we have, especially for sugar, is actually the reframe here. When you're cutting down basically all carbohydrates, your gut microbes are starving, they're dying off, and they're going to try to do whatever they can to stay alive. They're very opportunistic. So the cravings are not necessarily you as a human. It's not a character flaw. It's literally your gut microbes dying and trying to stay alive. That was a huge game changer when I learned this. I mean, essentially, we're more microbe cells back than human cells, actually. So yeah, food noise is, I get it when I'm hungry and very tired. And specifically hungry. If I haven't nourished myself properly, my mind is ruminating on food. And that's actually, aside from carnivore, that's actually a very common thing with eating disorder recovery, especially when you've restricted food for so long. Your body's still trying to relearn its hunger and satiety signals. And oftentimes, hunger doesn't necessarily show up in the traditional sense, i.e., like a grumbling stomach. For a lot of people, it's actually food noise and ruminatory thoughts, specifically about food. And I'm not saying that carnivore is a cure-all, because I've been carnivore for nearly 8 years, and I still sometimes have that, and I'm still, trying to get on top of all of these things. But I can tell you that I actually learned this from David Cho. He's a really cool human. He's not necessarily carnivore, but very outspoken about like addiction and creativity and all the things. But he has I learned it from him. I don't know if he originated it, if he started it, but HALT, HALT. If you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, those are like 4 of like the root triggers for addiction and potential relapses. So all of that to say, like, I have found that if I am listening to my body and nourishing it adequately, then the ruminatory thoughts, the food noise kind of is not really present. But yeah, you kind of have to push through the first little bit. You have to be patient, because it takes a while for those gut microbes to fully die off, and your palate will completely change.
So, how many times a day do you eat?
I used to do OMAD for so long. I
Okay.
gained weight. I gained all of my weight OMAD. So just for those who think that, because I say this because there was a very long time, and that's why I stuck with OMAD, where I was fearful of eating more. I kind of got stuck in that OMAD cycle and it didn't serve me any longer. So now I eat 3 times a day and I listen to my body.
Very good. And when you have a higher fat meal, does it satiate you
Yeah.
to the point,
Yeah.
okay, I'm good for a few hours now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Very much so. Very much so.
We have a few questions here. So let me, uh, Terry, what was it like those first 10 days of eating red meat only when your therapist, nutritionist, whoever it was, told you, okay, this is what you're going to
Yeah.
eat now?
I mean, very much like today. It's like exciting. I loved it so much. It was really amazing. Yeah.
And
I didn't have crazy gut symptoms. I think also I may be an anomaly to a lot of people listening here in that I kind of started at the opposite end of the spectrum. I was so malnourished that any food was, I had energy again. So gut issues kind of came on a little bit afterwards. But yeah, I literally from the get-go, like I had energy. I was excited. I was just happy to be able to just to be wanting and being able to eat, because that was
oh,
very, very hard for me. Yeah.
all right, faith focused food freedom. Uh, what was it like for you to start being vulnerable with sharing your previous eating disorder to others?
That's a really good question. I so I know I was always a shy kid, but when it came to therapy, I I mean, I'm a very honest person, and I always wear my heart on my sleeve. So especially when it came to doctors, I don't know, just intuitively, I always knew, and psychologists, that I need to be open and honest. So being vulnerable has never been a difficult thing for me. I sometimes feel like I may need to reel myself back in and not be so open. But I don't know, it's who I am. Interestingly though, when I was really, really sick, because whenever I was in a hospital or an eating disorder clinic, they were very, very traumatic experiences for me. And when I was there, I actually became mute. And that was kind of like a big red flag. Not only did I become mute, as I mentioned earlier, like everyone knew me in school for being like the music person. And I stopped listening. I couldn't play, I couldn't sing, nothing to do with music for many years. And that was, again, like quite a red flag for me that something wasn't really right. But yeah, I've never really struggled with being vulnerable. I'm very, very vulnerable. And I just kind of, I'm not doing it intentionally. I just know how I would feel um, if I heard someone speak like this. So I kind of am speaking to myself in a way too.
All right. Grandma's crochet quarter. How low did the weight get down to, and how is it now?
So I don't weigh myself now, but I have a rough gauge. My lowest weight was 24 kilograms, which I think is 50-ish pounds, if I'm not mistaken. So pretty low. And I'm,
How
gosh,
tall are you? So people
I'm
can
not,
put it in
I'm not,
context.
yeah. I'm 157 centimeters, which I think is 5'1". So I'm not tall.
Okay.
And my weight
But
now
still,
is,
50 pounds is, 50,
yeah,
52, 53, whatever it is. It's
yeah, it's
very
not,
low,
yeah.
even for a 5 foot person. So
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's definitely well into the 50 kilograms now. I think, like, I don't know. I would
110.
guesstimate. Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
Okay. And I think I know the answer, but why don't you weight yourself anymore?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I've never been one to weigh myself because I've never want like it's always been such a anxiety trigger for me. So I never even wanted to get myself on a scale even when I was low, because just knowing it was very, very anxiety provoking for me. So fortunately, I've never had that. And also, whenever you're in a clinic, you're not allowed to know your weight.
Well,
Yeah,
it could be for many people, it could be very triggering because then you
yeah,
start obsessing over that number,
exactly. Yeah,
whether
yeah,
it's
yeah,
right, high, or low.
yeah,
Obsessing over
yeah.
it is not a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But for anyone who's struggling with the weight and the scale, the biggest game changer for me was realizing that the scale cannot decipher between your bone mass, your muscle mass, your organ mass, your fluid. I mean, just fluid fluctuations within a day can be up to 5 kilograms for some people. So the scale is it's kind of like a means to an end. You're barking up the wrong tree. It's kind of like, it's the same as focusing on your total cholesterol number without actually knowing the breakdown of your LDL to HDL to trigs. So,
And the
and
context, the whole context of all that.
exactly. Or like looking at your thyroid levels and only looking at TSH without looking at your T4, your T3, your reverse T3, etc. So I've cut ties with the scale many, many years ago. I mean, I still have, thoughts and struggles like most of us do, but like, oh, that was just such a game changer to let it go. And I mean, now I've also become so I've prioritized building a lot of muscle mass. Like my goal for 2026 is to get strong AF. So because of course muscle is our organ of longevity, and especially with my background, I have low bone mineral density. So I'm really taking that seriously. And it's like, it's so weird to be saying right now, because I mean, even a year ago I wouldn't be saying this, that like I'm actually wanting to like gain mass because it's so healthy in
You
that
can do
context.
that
Muscle.
without having to weigh yourself and go for any
Exactly,
specific
exactly.
testing
Oh
because
yeah, yeah.
you will see it in your body. If
And you'll feel
uh,
it.
so, do you have an exercise routine?
I do. I do. At the moment, I'm strength training 4 days a week, and then I walk. Yeah, I used
All
to be
right.
a cray hits sort of like person, absolute cardio bunny, um, and that really ruined me. And I'm so grateful that I'm where I am now because, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I used to put my body through.
Yeah, movement, exercise, if you want to call it that, but movement is very, very important. But sometimes,
Yeah.
just like eating is important, sometimes you can overdo it.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you can do it to excess, and that's not good either. Now, this question here, I just because I've seen Chris around for a long time, I know it's sort of a rhetorical question, or uh, would carbs and processed foods, cereals, bread, snacks, etc., be considered an eating disorder? What do you think?
It's a good question. I do just want to say that it is not yet defined what actually like healthy eating is. Because every country, every culture, everyone has a different definition of what healthy eating is. Uh, would those be considered an eating disorder? Well, if someone, in my opinion, I think the intention is where it's at, because it really, yeah, it falls back on what your intention is. Are you eating or not eating these things out of fear? If so, I would consider that, disordered eating at least. But if you're just eating them without any fear, then I wouldn't say that that's technically an eating disorder. However, if I'm reading a little bit another way of your question, reading it differently,
Is it
I
a proper diet?
yeah, well, technically, it's not really. Well, I suppose one could argue if it's like traditionally ancestrally made like sourdough. I don't know. Uh, and I suppose snacks could be. I'm be getting very very technical here, but like snacks. I mean, you could get a snack which is just some meat, like. But I think I know what you mean. It's
I think the key is the processed foods
yeah, yeah. No, I
in his
understand. I
question.
understand. Yeah. I mean, technically, if someone is unable to not eat them, I would flag that, because you know, people who say they can't live without their chocolate or their bread, I'm like, okay, this is your gut microbes speaking. Secondly, yeah, I mean, technically, I mean, we know that, for example, sugar addiction is a known addiction. So, yeah, technically, if someone is literally unable to give up sugar, I would flag that as an addiction and possibly an eating disorder too, a la the work of Bitten Johnson.
So you probably are aware uh, that koalas eat mostly or only exclusively what? You know?
The isn't it eucalyptus
Yes,
leaves?
the leaves.
Yeah,
They don't eat anything else. That's their species
diet.
specific diet. And if you were to give them, for example, meat, that would not be appropriate for them. Uh, and especially the ultra processed foods. I think we can, in this grander space where there are people stating or saying, "Oh, vegan way of eating is better, vegetarian," or on the other side, carnivore. I think we can all agree that ultra processed foods are probably not to be considered food.
No.
Okay, because I mean, the most processed thing that we probably had, if we go back beyond 150 years ago, would be something like bread.
Yeah,
But bread with only three or four ingredients for
exactly.
hundreds or thousands of years,
Yeah.
not anything that resembles bread in the supermarket is not really bread. Not even the sourdough bread. It's real sourdough bread.
Not
And
even
I'm
the
not.
fruit and vegetables are the same.
Well, that's another argument
Yeah.
because some people, well, it's still an apple. Well, it is a genetically modified apple that now tastes 10 times sweeter than what it used to even 50 years ago. Uh, Anyways, let's see the next question. What does your daily diet consist of concerning amounts and timing?
Yeah, so I optimize my circadian rhythm. So I do like to keep my timing of meals, relatively at the same time every day. I have a big
So you
breakfast.
don't
I
eat
kind
at
of
nighttime?
No, 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 no.
Okay.
I kind of front load my calories. So I know I've experimented a lot over the last nearly 8 years, and what works best for me is if I cut off my eating quite a few hours before bed. Given my history with anorexia and bulimia, I still, my gut is princess gut. So I do still struggle, similar to people with Ozempic, with some, slow transit issues. So I do have to caution. I can't really eat a massive meal right before bed because my food does take quite a lot longer to digest. So yeah, I front load most of my calories. So I have a big. I kind of make breakfast my biggest ish meal of the day. Also through a
Okay.
circadian standpoint as well. Also, I'm really hungry in the morning. So I used to have my OMAD right at the end of the day, and that was just a cortisol disaster. So yeah, I eat breakfast, I have a lunch, and then I have a dinner. Sometimes, although most of the time now it's 3 meals a day, especially because I've been doing a lot of weight training. So I'm also a lot more hungry and I want to build my muscle. So yeah, in terms of amounts, it does vary, but I will tell you that I eat a minimum of a kilogram of meat a day and fatty meat. I love fat.
So that's
So that's a
2.2
minimum.
pounds.
Yeah, minimum. And I often go over that. So, yeah, I have a big appetite. Like anyone who knows me knows that I eat a lot.
And that's a
So,
lot. I just ate about a pound of meat. Had some tenderloin, a little bit of flat iron steak before I sat down on the computer here. And usually that does it for me. About a pound, could be
mm,
pound and a half. And I only eat once a day most of the time. Sometimes if I eat very early in the morning, then I can have because I have a little bit of gastroparesis. Uh, so I can't have a big lunch at 12
mm, mm, mm.
and anything before 6 p.m. I'm still full. And
Yeah,
probably if I eat at 12, I just can't eat again before going to bed.
yeah.
Um, so, what is the biggest misconception about using carnivore for eating disorders?
Whew. Misconception is that, oh my gosh, there's so many. Well, firstly, that it is an eating disorder. That is definitely a misconception because, I mean, you could be eating any diets, and it really depends on your intention of eating that diet that will make the difference, whether it's an eating disorder or not. So, yeah, that's the first thing. The second misconception, similar, I mean, not only to eating disorders, that like in conventional eating disorder recovery, they say that there should be no fear food, which I totally understand because technically that is kind of the disorder. Like you shouldn't really have fear food. But that being said, they also think that well, not only the eating disorder space, but like in general, people think that you need carbohydrates, and we know that they're not essential. Even though they can be, depending on your metabolic health, they can totally be a tool used that can help you. But yeah, I would say the biggest misconception is that the carnivore diet is an eating disorder. I would argue that, I mean, if we could interview some of our hunter-gatherer ancestors, they would argue, going back to Chris's question, that yeah, technically our standard American diet of today is actually an eating disorder because there is no ways that we would have access to apples all year round. And even the vegetables that we have now, like you can't find broccoli or kale in the savannas in Africa. I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. I often play this idea in my head. Like I'm wondering if our hunter-gatherer ancestors are like rolling in their graves, laughing or crying, or I don't know what. But um, yeah, I would say the biggest misconception is that the carnivore diet alone is an eating disorder. And my argument against that is that, especially when it comes to anorexia, like that population is in even more need of a nutrient-dense diet.
So, shifting gears just a little bit, tracking. Do you do any tracking of anything? We already know you are not tracking weight,
Yeah.
but do you track any other health marker, labs, or anything like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I do my hormones and my thyroid, and every year we do get like a medical checkup, so I know my cholesterol. Um yeah, that's pretty much it for now. It's kind of the general things, the general metabolic health panel. But up and above, I don't, I have, gone the calorie tracking route back in the day, but right now I'm definitely tracking that I'm getting enough protein. That's a big one.
Okay. And not being afraid of the fat.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right.
I let my
So,
body guide me.
yeah. How about a carnivore curious person that's looking into starting the carnivore diet? What's your advice? What's the first tip?
Do not go zero carb overnight. Really, like if you're eating a mixed diet right now, you start slow. Like my motto with all of my clients is slow and steady wins the race. Also, slow and steady wins the race because it's also a lot less jarring on your body and your limbic system entirely to like have these massive changes overnight. Because even just from changing your metabolism from burning glucose to burning fat, like that is a very metabolically expensive process. And a transition. So I would say you literally start slow. Like maybe it's, if you're drinking soda, maybe it's just you start with not having soda and just having sparkling water with some lemon if you want, for example. And then maybe after that you slowly take one meal every day, and that's when you don't have any carbohydrates, and you like literally go that slow. That's a very, I mean, obviously everyone's so bio individual and depends where they're starting from. But if you are already, for example, keto, then I would really again like look at, okay, let me and if your body's already familiar with being in ketogenesis, then you have a little bit more ability to kind of go a little bit more drastic of a change with your diet. So yeah, that's my biggest thing that I've seen with my clients is that like slow and steady always wins the race.
All right. Now, shifting it to another subject, you're a young lady at not even 30, by the way. I have 3 kids older than you. Uh, my daughter just turned 30 a couple of months ago.
Oh, happy birthday.
So, tell me about your skin routine. What do you
My
use?
I do not have a skin routine. I've never been that type of a person, but I will tell you that beef tallow, we get it here, we get good ones here. I know you get amazing ones in America. I use beef tallow, and that's me. I don't do cleanser. I mean, I probably should. But I literally eat a lot of fat probably, and that's kept me going.
But you also put beef tallow on your
Beef
face.
tallow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
beef tallow.
Okay. So I have a bunch of questions. We didn't talk about theater, acting, singing. You want to make any comments about that before
Um,
we?
not I mean, yeah, okay. One thing that I will say. So
Okay.
I think it's quite important for eating disorder recovery in that, and also just in general in the carnivore space. The nutrition is one tenet of health. We have many tenets of health. We've got the sleep, we've got the movement, but we also have passion and purpose. And my musical theater part of my story was another really big piece of my puzzle. I detail this more in my TEDx talk. If you guys want to go listen to that out, it goes into all the detail there with regards to musical theater. But the message that I want to leave everyone with is that, that for me, in my understanding of addiction and eating disorders, the opposite of an eating disorder / addiction is passion and purpose. Because once you're nourishing your authenticity, it's kind of an absolute, like you've got clarity and you've got authenticity. I in my TEDx talk I speak about this too, but there was a life coach who once said to me, Kelsey, if you're unable to nourish your authenticity, how do you expect to nourish yourself on a purely physiological level? So the nutrition piece is just one part of our puzzle for all of us, but the passion and the purpose piece is another massive fundamental in our overall health and well-being. And I don't think it's rocket science when you kind of zoom out and look at it through that lens too. So it's a big part of the recovery journey too.
Thank you for being with us today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if someone wants to get in touch with you, where do we find you? How do we find you?
Yeah, so the best place to find me is on Instagram, which is just at my name and surname. So at KelseyBuchalter. Or you can follow my podcast on Spotify or Apple, and it's called The Human Theatre, and it's spelled South African, so THEATRE is how we spell theatre. um, and but I would say Instagram is where I'm my most active. So follow me there and send me a DM, and I answer everyone. So would be happy
Uh,
and cool to hear from you.
all righty. Well, thank you for being with us. Those in the Kiltz Mighty Tribe, remember 5:30 Zoom meeting, and 7 because then we're going to be with Amy and her line group for the month of January. Thank you, Kelsey, for being with us. And I will see you, if not in the Zoom calls this afternoon, then tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. We're here every morning as well. Have a great day and eat meat.